You don't need 20 different exercises to build a strong lower body. And you don't need the gym machines or any fancy equipment either. You only need 4 moves to hit your entire lower body from core to legs. These are the moves I use, and so do the guys in my community, Warrior Society. So if you wanna finally get in shape without overcomplicating your life, this video is for you. Every lower body workout should have some kind of squat in it, because squat is the king of lower body training. But squat has its limitations, especially when it comes to calisthenics. Because if you are going to the gym, you just take the barbell and you keep adding weights on it over time as you progress. But if you are doing pure bodyweight approach, the only way is to keep adding reps, right? No, you can also make the exercise harder by picking a harder variation of this exercise. I think it makes sense. Usually what it means is to go from 2-leg exercise to 1-leg exercise. This is how we mostly progress with calisthenics. And so one of my favorite way to start is to start with Bulgarian split squats, because most guys that start training with me, they're already a little bit too strong for the regular squats. They can do like at least 20 of them. And so then we start with Bulgarian split squats. All you need is something to put your rear leg on like this, and you go all the way down until your back leg slightly touches the ground, and then you go all the way up, and that's 1 repetition of the Bulgarian split squat. At home, I do it differently. So I basically take 2 chairs to elevate both my front and my back leg so that I have way more range of motion, and that equals even more gains. Maybe you don't see it yet that much. My legs are pretty small. I got negative comments from time to time, but it's okay, I don't give a fuck. It's not because calisthenics doesn't work for legs. It works. It's slower than the gym because it's harder to progress with these bodyweight leg exercises, but it works. The only reason why I have chicken legs is that I just didn't train them for the first many years since I started training calisthenics. I was only focusing on the upper body. Now for the past about 1 or 2 years, I've been training lower body hard, and my legs already grew quite a lot. Maybe they're not huge. They are strong though. So when the Bulgarian split squat becomes too easy, you can also do what I do now. 1-leg squats. Here the ground is uneven, so it's difficult, but at home I do them weighted. If Bulgarian split squat is too hard, you can do reverse lunges. They are a little bit easier than the Bulgarian split squat, just like this. If the lunges are still a little bit too difficult, then just do the regular bodyweight squats. Just remember, do your squats, don't repeat my mistakes. Don't build a strong upper body and skip your legs. Another movement pattern I consider essential in my training routine is some kind of hip hinge movement. Hip hinge is basically when you do hinge in your hip. Simple as that. So it's like grabbing something from the ground. And this is especially important because these times we are sitting a lot. If you are sitting a lot, your hamstrings and your glutes, they are turning off. They are not really being used. They are being squeezed, and then they become extremely weak. And so to battle that, we have squats, because squats also work on the back of your legs, but they are not as strong on this as some kind of hip hinge move. Squats mostly work the front of your leg, and hip hinge works mostly the back of your leg. And so that's why I like to counterbalance the squats with some kind of hip hinge movement, like, for example, single leg RDL. This is Romanian deadlift. Romanian deadlift normally is like this, and you lift the barbell. And to make it harder, I like to do it on 1 leg, just like this, and you feel this stretch in your hamstring like this. You can start doing this body weight for multiple reps, let's say 15 reps. And as you get stronger, you find some elevation. This is not straight, but just to present you. Oh my God, this is messed up. So if you have elevation, you can grab a backpack. You can load the backpack with whatever you have at home. You can put books in there, water bottles. In my community, there were some guys who were putting like some metal pieces in the backpack, and they were doing their training with it. I don't know. I remember seeing a picture of a bag full of some freaking metal. This is pretty cool. So let's say I'm holding a backpack, and you go all the way down and all the way up. I hope it's obvious why I do elevation, right? Because if you do this, then the ground will limit your range of motion. The backpack will be now on the ground. So if you do elevation, it's even better. Some other alternatives for the Romanian deadlifts could be things like single leg sliding curl. This is something I'm doing, but it's really difficult actually. And Technically, it's not really a hinge movement. This is more like knee flexion. But I like to just put them together because I think of it more as just hit the back of your legs. So you lay on the ground, you take a towel or something slippery that you can put on the ground under your heel and you do this kind of move. If single leg is too hard, which is high probability that it is, you can do this obviously on 2 legs. If both of these exercises are too easy for you, you might want to start training for the Nordic curls. Man, this will humble you. This is the hardest exercise I have ever done. This is the only exercise I cannot do 1 repetition of, or at least 1 proper full range of motion repetition. I can do various versions of handstand push-ups, jumping 1 leg squats, some other shit like that, but I cannot do 1 repetition of Nordic curls. So take this exercise slowly. You can also regress this in various ways, and man, this will get you strong. Every exercise I'm showing you on this channel, whether it's upper or lower body exercise, trains your core to a certain degree. Because when I'm picking my exercises, I'm picking only the ones that hit multiple muscles at the same time. And so every exercise I've already shown you hits that abs. But for even more gains, I'd recommend adding 1 specific ab exercise. One of my favorite recommendations has always been the hanging leg raise. This is an excellent ab exercise, but most guys completely mess it up. Almost everyone I've seen doing this exercise is doing it wrong because they just train their hip flexors, not their core. You train your abs like this. If you imagine crunches, you do kind of this movement. You are like this with your abs. You're compressing it. And people, when they do leg raises, they just lift their legs because that's what the name suggests. But actually, the leg movement while this exercise should be compressing your core. So not just lifting your legs like a moron, but actually doing this movement with your entire body. And the easiest way to show it is with knee raises. And generally, this is also exercise I recommend for most beginners because leg raises are too hard for most people. And you will see how much I compress my core with them. See, I'm not only raising my knees like this, I'm also doing this kind of core compression or whatever, however we want to call it. If even the knee raises are too difficult for you, you can simply do this laying on the ground. But once the leg raises become too easy, you just raise them higher, all the way to the bar. This is called toes to bar. And at some point, after you join our community and become a beast, you can even do it on 1 arm. By the way, if you wonder why the heck did he put abs in the lower body workout, it's simply because in my definition, when I talk about lower body, I talk about everything below the chest. This is how I distinct my workouts. So always, when I think about core, I always treat it as lower body workout. The previous exercise was the core flexion, this kind of move. Now we have the core extension, so the opposite. It's here for similar reason as the hinge exercise. The squat was training the front of your legs, the hinge was training the back of your legs. Core flexion trains the front of your core, core extension trains the back of your core, and you're probably aware of why it is important to train your lower back. If you're sitting a lot, like me, I'm working all day and my job is on my computer. I'm literally sitting all day. Recently I bought myself this kind of under-desk treadmill, and this helps a lot because I started walking way more, and instead of sitting the entire day, I'm walking 1 hour, then I'm sitting maybe 2 hours, then I'm walking 1 hour again, and so on. But most guys don't have it, and even though I have this walking treadmill, I still train my lower back now because I hear so many stories from my community members how they say if they don't do their lower back exercise, they always have back pain. And if they do their lower back exercise, they never have back pain anymore. So really, take this into consideration. Do your lower back exercises. And also, it doesn't have to be much. You can just do 1 lower back exercise, and it can be this one, because this one doesn't require any equipment and it's very easy to get started. You just lay down on the ground like this, then you lift your chest and arms and your legs at the same time, and then you go down, and this is 1 repetition. Over time, as you get stronger, you just put your arms more forward. The more forward they are, the harder it gets. This can take you quite some time for it to become too easy for you. So just play around with it for a few months. At some point, you can also take something in your hand and do this exercise weighted. Even water bottle will challenge you at first. One cool alternative for this exercise is a hyperextension. Normally people think you cannot really do this at home, and so did I. I didn't know I can do this at home until just a few weeks ago when I figured out this nice setup. So I just take a chair, I put it against the wall. The longer your legs are, the further away it will be, because you need to lay down so your hip is at the end of the chair. And then you need something to lock your legs against. And this can be a wall, like I have here. I press my legs against the wall and I do the hyperextensions. This is not the best setup, not ideal, but better than nothing. And if you have something like I have this power rack here, where I lock my legs on the belt, now it's even more comfortable and less clunky. So if you have a nice setup for this, try this out. At some point you can grab something in your hand, just like I hold this weight plate here, and just do your reps. If you want more exercises like this, inside of the Warrior Society we have a full step-by-step progression roadmap, which is full of exercises like this. At this moment we have around, I think, 100 different progressions that you follow step by step. So you start at the beginner level or whatever level you join us, and then you just over time pick the next exercises on the roadmap. And if you stay consistent and you keep showing up and following the roadmap, then after a few years you might be at the end of the roadmap, and then you're basically a beast. And there is also a full training system built around this progression roadmap. If you want it, there is a link in the description. So here's how I put it into practice. So I take the exercises I spoke about today and I pair them up into two so-called supersets. Superset A and superset B. Superset A is basically a pair of squat and hinge. Superset B will be a pair of core flexion and the core extension. And then the workout flow is as follows. I do the exercise A, which in this case was Bulgarian split squat. Then let's say I did 12 repetitions of it without any rest between. I go instantly to the exercise B, which was single leg Romanian deadlift. I do how many reps I can for the Romanian deadlift. Then I rest 3 minutes. And then I repeat this superset one more time. So I do exercise A and exercise B again. Then I rest 3 minutes again. And then I go to the superset B. And I basically follow exactly the same process. I love this training technique. This is one of my favorite training hacks because according to studies that I've seen, it can save up to 36% of your training time. This is crazy. And this is time saved without losing any gains. And the thing here is that we use the antagonist supersets. Easy example. When your biceps is working, your triceps is inactive. So if you do a set of an exercise for your biceps and then you go do a set of exercise for your triceps, then it means while you are doing the second exercise, you are already resting your biceps. So you don't need to rest between these two exercises, and you only rest after you do the full superset round. This is one of my favorite training techniques, and I do the same thing for the upper body workouts. And by the way, when it comes to upper body, if you like this system so far and you want similar system but for the upper body, just click this video here.